excellent. I'm so very excited for your time, ladies, and I feel very honored. Can I just say joy? Honestly, joy. Uh, I gotta get working my arms, man. If ever there's an inspiration for power, like the power in joy are the two things that I feel like you really come away from this and just in a time where I feel like there is such a push between women fighting really hard to regain their rights in cultures where they have had them taken away for some decades, and then we in the United States who have had rights now, it seems like they're trying to be taken away. To see, like, this film is so prescient, and so I just first want to just start with thank you, honestly.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Um, so that's my first, and then I am not
Wonderful.
going to, I want to hear you, but I just had to start with thank you. So, and as a mother of a 15-year-old daughter, I think it's so important to see women wanting something and fighting for it and making it happen. And so there, I wanted to say that. I guess I'd like to really start with, like how it was you came to find these group of women as they're coming. I looked in some to Tiffany and Diana, and man, what a unique human they are. And it just it's such a unique group that came together to make this happen. So I'd like to know how this film came to be. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to start listening.
Um, well, the film came to be over lunch, Don.
Yeah, Jen and I had lunch.
Yeah.
And we've known each other for over 20 years. And so we were, sharing life stories, and she shared this dream she had and that it was starting to get some momentum, and was wondering if I wanted to film the concert, for documenting purposes more than anything. And the more we talked, the more it became clear to me that this was a film. And so I pitched that to her, and she agreed. And then there we go. So I was thinking about this just recently, that, like, the best stories really are in your backyard. And Jen was hanging out in the backyard. And then she had a backyard full of amazing performers, and then I had a backyard that included Keri, who was the co-director, and so it's yeah. I'm just playing with this backyard concept recently.
And Dawn and I know each other because of drinking wine and having snacks on a rooftop, because we were both members of the Film Fatales, which is a national organization of women who have directed feature films and or a series that is played on television. And so it's women directors from around the country, and we have a local chapter, and Dawn and I got to know each other there and got to admire one another's work. And so with the story centering on family and community, it was a perfect fit for me. And it's just been an amazing journey to learn about Tycho. On my side too, I did know something about Tycho, but certainly when you start a documentary film, you learn a lot more than you ever thought you would know.
And then for me, this idea of gathering the best of the best, like the unicorns in the taiko world, and the, you know, all of the divas and goddesses coming together in one room. Um, it was a little audacious. It's a simple, you know, idea, but then here's me in Minnesota, like Facebook messaging people I'd never met saying, "Hey, I have this idea for a project," you know. Um, and the invite list, you know, I knew I wanted a diversity of style, a diversity of, you know, kind of career, where you were geographically, where you were in your career, different approaches to the art. But also, I just went to people that I admire and said, if you could invite anyone to play with, who would it be? And then people who appeared on multiple lists, those were ones, even if I had never heard of them, then those are the ones I would go ask. And, you know, and then at some point I was like, I had to stop asking because people are saying yes. And, you know, what started out as maybe, you know, a cast of 10 became a cast of 18, you know, eventually. And the truth is that we could have filled the stage, you know, 10 times over. I admire each one of these artists so much, but the idea is that there are so many more behind them or next to them or surrounding them that are ready to step forward. And these folks aren't just unicorns, they're a proof of concept. They're a proof of concept that women are doing amazing things everywhere you look. And you just have to make a little more room. And if they're not making room for you, then you gotta, you know, bring your own chair, as Don says, and elbow your way in and create the space for you to do your thing. So yeah, it was quite the endeavor, and I was just, again, honestly humbled and amazed that people said yes, not knowing me from Adam. Some of them I knew, of course, but some of them I didn't, and they put a lot of faith into the idea of this gathering and the idea of this collaboration.
What a terrific problem to have.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wait, I've got to stop asking people. I've already got more than I was supposed to have.
Right. Yeah.
I remember that was actually an issue. It was like, oh, we where are we going to put all the people on the stage? We have such a small stage, and
that's actually one of the largest stages in the Twin Cities. And even then, it was like we could have busted it open. So yeah.
And I think I was I'm kind of in a second act of my life right now. I'm kind of returning to the stage after I stopped to have children, and and I remember that being a problem, that there was always, you know, 3 times as many women auditioning for a third of the roles than there were for the men auditioning. And they were like, do you know some guys that could come with you? Like, especially if it was a Shakespeare play. Honest to goodness, that was actually asked of me when I was up in Saratoga one time, is, can you bring a guy or two with you to the callbacks? So anyways, I can imagine that the same thing with, you know, you've got these amazing women and you're like, we just can't ask anymore. And we've got more that can do this. So that seems like, I can imagine that being a real thing. One of the moments that really stood out to me is when Naomi says, should our goal here be to give the audiences what we think they want? Or should our goal here to be to give them what they don't know they long for? And I just kept rewinding that and listening to it over and over, because I thought, isn't that really what women are facing in so many parts of the world as they come into more and more positions, that it wasn't just a theatrical issue. Right. It's that there's been so many cultural norms that women come into and face, that when we come in, we do things differently, right? And that if we were allowed to try to do it our way, they might go,
right.
Yeah.
But we feel so often that we can't do it that way, because everybody's so locked in and they're scared of the change or whatever. And when the whole group just did this collective, when she said it, that I did it too, watching, I was like, You
Yeah,
know, it just
I
when
agree. I
someone
totally
says
agree.
something that it's like been inside your body and you didn't know that it was inside your body till they said it. It was such a beautiful moment. And I just kind of wondered, like, it felt like I wondered if you as the filmmakers and if the spirit in the room when that happened was that when it felt like it as a watching the film, and if that was sort of kind of the collective, if that kind of driving of the film was that like you're making something that's kind of saying that seems like the film was more than just about the drumming, that it was about what these and maybe I should stop saying women because it was more than women. I really don't want to dismiss like man's presence. And so I'll just say these performers. I don't want to diminish. So these great performers were there, that there was just something more than it just being about the drumming, not to diminish the drumming.
Certainly. No, I think that was the vision from the beginning, was that Taiko is the lens through which we are looking at this larger cultural dynamic of women being set aside. And it's interesting when you say that. It makes me think of, in the film world, there's all these women waiting to direct series, waiting to be invited to do the things, and being told, that they don't have the experience necessary, and nobody wants to take a chance on them. And it's interesting because you will take a chance on a man who is in that same position. It'll be like, ooh, he's got these new visions. He's exciting and new. And with women, it's more like, ooh, you're untested and untried, and I'm not sure what you bring to the table. And oh, there's my dog. And so it's an interesting dynamic there. And I think that, to your point, what are we missing? What are we missing when we don't invite women? When we don't, say, sure, I'm gonna let you run this show this time, because maybe you will bring something that people have longed for and didn't know.
And Tracy, one of the things that's really cool about the project is that everybody worked really hard to make sure that the people behind the scenes and behind the camera reflected the same people who are in front of the camera. And so everybody was some Asian women, queer, non-binary, or just amazing, and in some kind of combination thereof. And so I know Dawn worked really hard to find people who then could also, for me, as in the filming of it, speak Japanese. But when you're filming, there's really no time. You can't like stop the thing and say, oh, this is amazing, film now.
Right.
You just really have to be rolling and using your intuition. And so I think that the fact that women were behind the camera helped us be in a much more intimate and trusting environment with one another. And culturally, we were able to come together in a really good way, good feeling.
I do really appreciate, though, that moment stuck out for you, because it certainly did for me. And there's always that tension of like proving yourself or just showing up, right? And I think that helped kind of dispel that feeling of like proving yourself, or putting yourself up against a specific set standard, and being, no, we're just going to do our thing. And as we do that, people will see what we are and how amazing it is. And just the idea that this film, whether you've heard of Taiko or not, that you can relate to that feeling. Anyone who's been in the margins or been marginalized can relate to that feeling of just wanting to be seen and knowing that you have something to offer. And so, certainly in the screenings that we've had to date, I've been just so moved by people who respond and see themselves in the film that way. And I think it's extremely powerful what Don and Keri did in creating this film and taking something that happened in this moment and elevating it to a place where now it can be kind of shared beyond that moment. And I'm just so thrilled.
I absolutely believe that it can be enjoyed way beyond whether or not you ever have heard of Taiko or even are into that kind of musical experience. I absolutely believe it's so much more than that. And building on that, it was something that responded deeply to me is I grew up Southern, and I have a really hard time being assertive. It's something that I'm kind of learning later in life. And when they spoke about you've got this group of women and they want to be the first one drumming, and they want to get to be at the center stage and get to show their stuff. And yet they're also in a group of women, and they like each other and they don't want to be rude. And that whole thing about how do they be competitive, and they've done a lot of this with men where they felt comfortable like being assertive because they were with the men, and now they're with women and trying to find that balance. Like, how do I be nice among women and be? And I was like, oh gosh, that's not just me. And I thought that was also really compelling because it reminded me that I guess a lot of us women and feel that, like, I don't think women are taught well how to be competitive in a way that we can feel comfortable. And I'm seeing my daughter, I feel like, is learning better. I think she's Gen Z, and I think she's much more comfortable with it. And I hope that's true. And sorry, my ear pods are giving me a hard time today. And so I thought that was a really great thing that was pointed out. And that was a great scene to me, anyways.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that there's an interesting, I haven't thought about it that way before, but that we aren't necessarily taught to compete kindly, to put ourselves forward while also being a human, and also recognizing that everybody else in this room is wanting the same thing. And how do you be kind and also not put yourself under the bus?
Well,
yeah, it was just,
I think that, sorry, I was just going to say that challenge, I think, of everyone feeling like this was a particularly rare and precious opportunity. So you have that feeling of scarcity, and we only have X amount of time, and this is the first time this has ever been done, and will it ever be done again? And, but at the same time, you're working with this circle of artists, of people who you admire and respect so deeply, so it was an interesting thing to navigate, I would say, in that, I don't think, it's not easy. It's not just kumbaya, we're all here and it comes naturally. Like, I think there's a real struggle in that, but I would say that the struggle is good as long as you always have a base of respect and trust.
yes.
Like, if you can establish that foundation, then the struggle is actually very fruitful, of like, I want to do this. Well, I think we should do that. Well, let's talk about it. Like, all of that is really important, I think, in the process. But yeah, you have to come in with respect and trust, and that's hard to do very quickly. It's hard to do across language and culture barriers. It's hard to do across, generational barriers and personalities and all of those things. But I have to say that I would work with any one of those people all day long because they're just amazing stand-up artists.
And speaking of struggle, we had all of that, all of the interpersonal struggles, all of the struggle to get to being, for Jen to be able to realize the dream. And then along comes COVID.
Yes. Yes, I remember that because they couldn't even go. There was like, and they're going to do this, and COVID's taken over Japan, and they don't have, they don't have nothing to go back home to. Like, yeah, I remember
real.
that being an element, and that's the thing too. Like, we all were changed by that as well. Like, everything is shaped by that, and so that was a real element of it. Is here they're making this beautiful come together thing, and then we all went into isolation. So that's another living creature. Like, to me, COVID is like its own character and everything. Yeah.
Spectre, character spectre.
Well, as we come, I know we're closing in on the end of our time, and I know you guys are lined up, so I want to be respectful of it. If I can just, I'll start with Keri. If I can just ask each of you, like, the one thing you would want me to take away from the film, so that when I'm sharing it, I make sure that I express what matters most from each of you.
I would say that the story is told from within, and it emerged from what happened, and that we filmed it in a cinema verite way so that the audience can be on the journey of discovery with us.
Oh, okay. I like that. All right. I'm just putting little notes so I know where to find it in the recording. All right. And Dawn, may I have one from you?
Sure. I mean, I think that I just keep thinking about what we've been talking about, that this is Tycho, and this is bigger than Tycho, that this is the story of how we take our passions and we bring our own chair. When we're not invited to the party, we throw our own party. Because I feel like a commercial, but I'm like, we're worth it. And we're talented, and it's been so empowering hearing women claiming their talent and claiming their right to do the work that they were meant to do.
Love it.
Nice.
I love it. And Jennifer.
Well, I really love what you said when we first started talking about joy and power. For me, especially in these times, and as an Asian American woman, I am very hungry and happy and thrilled to see any representation anywhere showing Asian women being joyful and powerful. So to have a project, a film that fills the screen with so many faces and a diversity of people and humans, that speaks from that place, that is so wonderful to me. And I'm so thrilled that we can put something out there that is not about our trauma, that's not about that's not a homework lesson or a
I hear that.
That it's something that you can truly just experience and enjoy and feel empowered, and that just makes me so happy.
Well, thank you. I will tell you, my focus of my blog is embracing your second act. I say the old phrase, it's all downhill from here. Well, I say the best part of the roller coaster is the second half, which is the downhill. That's the fun part. And I'm in for the ride. And I say, shine brightly. And you three ladies are examples of shining brightly. So I really appreciate your time today and the film. I feel very honored to have been included in getting to cover it. And I will, of course, when it comes out early next week, I will, of course, share it with Annie, and she will share it with you. And you've been gracious to give me some of your time today as well. And honestly, like, my day is better for having gotten to have the joy of the Tycho and this interview. So
Yay, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. You too.
thank you. All right. All my best.